I'm going to go start a podcast. And I'm going to interview smart people. I'm going to interview successful people. And maybe if I have a platform that I can reach out to these people and they'll say, yes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Marketing Inc. Super, super excited to have an amazing guest with me today, Mr. Josh Forti. Welcome to the show.
Ali, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really exciting to see some of the changes that you've been making over the last year. Definitely wanted to dive in today and cover this golden mic method that I've seen you talk about. But first, before we dive into it, for people who may not be familiar with you, why don't you go ahead and give us some background, who you are, what you do, and what brought you to this place in your career?
So I'm an entrepreneur through and through, and I grew up an entrepreneur. My first job was selling lemonade on the side of the road. And then I figured out I could make more money by selling chocolate chip cookies with it. Right. So like lifelong entrepreneur. I'm sorry.
I said the power of the offer.
I'm telling you what, right? Like it's once you're hooked. And I think we as entrepreneurs are just built a little bit differently, right? We're cut from a different cloth. And I don't think I realized just how much that was the case until probably somewhat recently, right? The more I get into this world, the more I realize that people aren't entrepreneurs. But if anyone's listening as an entrepreneur and you're an entrepreneur, it's like you're an entrepreneur. And that's been me my entire life. I got into the entrepreneurship space early on. And after several years of failure, found Instagram and found social media and the power of social media marketing, particularly organic. And that was my first big success, if you will. We grew and managed about 7 million followers or so and had some success. Wasn't making a whole lot of money, but that was my first thing that was like, it was mine and it was working. And then I learned from there, after some failures and some setbacks, I learned how to actually make money. I learned how to sell stuff. I learned how to do marketing. And one thing led to another. And I had a pretty large Facebook group that we grew to 35,000 members. And then that led to a podcast. And yeah, just one thing to another. And that's been my journey, has been just commitment to the online space, 7-8 years. And about 4.5, almost 5 years ago now, my brother actually had passed away in a helicopter crash, which kind of just wrecked my world. My wife ended up getting sick. It was a season of challenges, right? It was a season of setback. And at the time, it was good. We had done a lot of results. We had made, at the time, I'd made my clients probably over $10 million and had all these millions of followers for people. But I, as a person, I, as an entrepreneur, I was lost, right? I, as an entrepreneur, did not know what it was that I was doing. I didn't know who I was. I didn't even know that I didn't know who I was. There was just a lot of that internal growth. I think that yeah, I'm sure as an entrepreneur, right? It's the greatest personal development journey ever. Absolutely. And so it's that look yourself in the face type of deal. And one thing led to the next, and I ended up having not an agency, but selling services for about two and a half years. And it was like the best 2.5 years of my life when it came to actually just learning how to, okay, cool, simplify everything down. And like I have one offer with one service and just sell it. And that's where I made my first million and second million, and then almost third million with the Gold Mic method. And we can go a little bit more into that, into the backstory there. But selling services as an entrepreneur, finding a problem that I knew how to solve for people was the thing that changed my life. And it doesn't sound overwhelmingly sexy. It wasn't like the most, oh my gosh, like I discovered this thing that nobody else has. It was just like, no, I figured out something that was going to be able to change my life by going and changing other people's lives. And yeah, that's a little bit about my background. I'm married, I'm a Christian, and I have a beautiful 7-month, almost 8-month-old daughter now. And she's absolutely adorable. And so I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, I've seen the photos and she is so cute. And this is going to be the next phase of personal growth and development. Like as a dad, as a parent, it really does change so much about how you do business. At least it has for me personally. It really helps you want to simplify even more forward because you want to be so present. So I love that. I think it's going to be a continued journey. It is for all of us. But I really like what you said. It's not business success and like finding the thing that works isn't always like this sexy or revolutionary thing.
Yeah.
I really think most of the time it comes down to what's more simple and what is proven marketing and sales principles that you can apply. And that I think in the marketing industry, everything's always so hyped up all the time about this new thing, this new technique. And I've been thinking about the same thing recently because I'm like, I don't know if the things that I've done that have worked really well are anything other than tried and true marketing and sales principles that I implement or that I help people implement. And if that sounds boring, I guess that's fine. But at the same time, when you find something that works, you just want to go all in on it. So I love that.
And it's interesting. I like how you frame that too, because like we like to say the golden mic method is a principle-based approach to sales that happens to use a podcast. And we're marketers, and I hired Dan Henry. I ended up spending $100,000, like a real $100,000, not a marketing $100,000, to go down with him. And Dan's a marketer, and I'm a marketer. And the golden mic method is such a marketing name, 100%. But it's in all of my life as an entrepreneur, like when I have focused on tactics, when I have focused on hacks, when I have focused on a quick win, it's the wise man builds his house upon the rock, foolish man builds his house upon the sand. And it's been that. It's been a quick win. It's been something that you build and burn. It falls apart. And so the golden mic method, being a principle-based approach of what we're doing, is how do we study principles of success? Because have you ever read the book by Ray Dalio? Principles by Ray Dalio.
I'm actually reading it or listening to it right now. Actually.
Okay, that book changed my life. And as entrepreneurs, if anyone's an entrepreneur here that's listening, it's like, life is chaos, right? Life is uncertainty. There's all this swirling madness going around us all. When Ray Dalio was talking about principles, I was like, oh, these principles never change. Okay, got it. Like, how do I find those things? And when I did that, oh my gosh, now I could simplify my life. Right now, when someone asks me, what's the biggest thing that's changed since having a daughter? And I was like, honestly, in business, probably my output per hour, right? Like probably because I've had to be so intentional, right? Yeah. Every single minute that I spend in the business has to be like on something that I can't waste it because I've got time at that. And so anyway, it's been a fun journey with that.
100%. I do think that the great thing about like understanding the back to basics or principles approach, to me, it like gives me a lot of peace in thinking about it that way, that like you don't have to constantly try and keep up with all of these new things. Like there's always different tactics or platforms or places to advertise or sell. But as long as you can really stay focused on those principles, you feel a lot more confident that what it is that you're doing is going to work and stand the test of time. So I think that's awesome. So how did you discover what you are now utilizing with the golden mic method? Was this through the time that you spent with Dan Henry? Was this kind of the starting point of that offer? And if so, let's dive into how you arrived at this specific sales mechanism, I guess we can call it.
Yeah. So I have been someone that I'm an all-in type person. Do you know Brad Gibb?
I know of him. I don't know him personally.
Yeah. Okay. So Brad Gibb he's one of my best friends. And he goes, Josh, you're a test the ice with both feet type of people or type of person. And I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs probably are, but I very much so am. And so I would say about 19 months ago or so now, I completely recommitted my life to Christ. And when that happened, that will give you a major shift in life. Right. And so I had a business at the time. We were doing about $250,000 a quarter. So about $1 million a year or so from it. And when I made this decision, and I know it sounds crazy, but I was like, I knew I was supposed to shut the business down, and not from a place of that things weren't working, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, I shut it down. I'm like, I went to Boise and I had Russell Brunson look me in the eye personally. He's like, dude, you're making a mistake. I can show you how to scale this thing. And I'm like, I know, but you ever have those like gut feelings when your heart of hearts and soul, you're like, this isn't the right direction, right? Yeah. So that's where the moment was. And I was like, okay, all right, God, all right, Jesus, if I tell you that I'm giving you everything, if I tell you I trust you, then I'm gonna go down this route. And for it was about 6 months. I did all of the boring, disgusting work to fix my past life of going back and apologizing to people and fixing past relationships and righting wrongs and taking care of issues that needed to be taken care of, and like becoming the person I felt like God called me to be, right? And so there was this like 6 months of, I didn't not do business, but I didn't do any public business, right? I wasn't promoting anything. There was no launches or anything like that. And in about July of last year, so July of 2023, I felt like I was at a place I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm ready to come back, and I'm ready to actually build something now that I feel like I've made right for the past. I'm ready to go and do this. But I said, I want to, the next thing that I build, I want to build it right. There's no going to be shortcuts here. I'm not going to like wing it and figure it out on the fly type of deal. And so about that time, Dan Henry had made a post and he was like, hey, you want to spend 2 days with me, blah, 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 and all this. And so I'm like, right, yeah, I do. And so I ended up paying him $100,000, and I flew down to his house in Costa Rica. And if you've ever, Dan, I know, and he's such a character, right? He's so funny, but he's brilliant. I think he gets a lot of bad rep, but Dan is very smart. And so when you take a private helicopter to a helicopter pad on the top of a mountain down to his private mansion, things hit a little bit differently. But we spent about 2 or 3 days down there. And over the course of those 3 days, we tore apart my business. We tore apart what had been working. Like we pulled up Stripe accounts and we pulled up like all of the data and we like looked at it and analyzed it. And he was like, okay, got to see what's working, right? Like, what worked, what didn't, all that. And so we've done several $1 million and personally, and then tens of millions of dollars now for our clients. And what we found that was working was he's like, Josh, why don't you just do this thing right here, podcast thing? And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, explain to me how you got these clients. Explain to me how you made these multiple $1 million from a podcast when nobody even knows what you do. And I'm like, oh, well, that's easy. And so basically what happened is if I rewind, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years, 3.5 years now, almost, gosh, it's been 4 years. Yeah, 4 years now. I started entrepreneurship in a world of beginners, right? I was a beginner. I don't come from money. I don't have special talents. I'm not gifted. I'm not an athlete. Like that's not me. And I certainly didn't grow up with a billionaire Rolodex. Did you?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, I don't think most of us do. We get into this world and we're like, we're going to hustle and we're going to work. And that's where I was. And I was making not enough money and I was broke and I was, as cliche as it was, I really was. I was making 5,000 or 6,000 a month take home. And I'm sitting there like that moment of how can I be the only one that doesn't have this thing figured out type of deal, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm sitting at these events. I'm watching these YouTube channels. I'm trying to figure it all out. And I went, everyone says mindset's the key to success. Everyone says that learn from mentors, learn from rich people, learn from the people that have the success that you want. And I'm like, I don't have the money to do that. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go start a podcast because I can't join $50,000 masterminds. So I'm going to go start a podcast and I'm going to interview smart people, right? I'm going to interview successful people. And maybe if I have a platform that I can reach out to these people and they'll say yes to me. Because once again, I don't have a billionaire Rolodex. I don't come from money. Like I had no other way to do this. And so that's what I did. I started reaching out and I started interviewing these successful people. I interviewed Taylor Welch, who was my first interview. And long story short, I ended up interviewing Brad Gibb. And at the time, Brad Gibb and I didn't really know each other. We certainly weren't like friends. And Brad's a very busy guy, right? Tens of millions of dollars in real estate. He's got multiple 7-figure businesses, like very successful. And we get done. The interview's actually still up. We get done. It's like a 2-hour interview. And we get done with this thing and he goes, dude, that was awesome. That was amazing. I like you. Like I would actually be interested in hiring you to come help me with some of my social media stuff.
Awesome.
And the freak out moment, right? Like, I'm like, oh gosh, this guy's so rich. And I'm just this nobody kid. And I freak out, ask him some questions. And long story short, later that week, he goes, can you send me over a proposal? And I sent him over something on a Google Doc because I was embarrassed to send him to my funnels. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling. It's you think your funnels are so great. So you meet a rich person and you're like, I'm embarrassed. So I sent him over that Google Doc. And later that week, he ended up wiring me $30,000.
It's amazing.
30 grand. And it was that moment of, you ever have those moments where you're like, I do not know what just happened. I don't know what I just did, but I need to do more of that.
Yes, for sure.
That was the moment. And that was the kind of the light bulb of, I had been playing in a world of broke people, right? I had been playing in a world that just couldn't really afford to pay me. Yeah. And Brad he opened my eyes. He brought me into this new world, this new reality where $25 or $30 or $40,000 wasn't that much money. If you could just solve a problem, these people would pay it. And it was the first time my eyes had been opened to a new reality. And the Golden Mic, having a platform, having a microphone, was this bridge over into the new world. And so that's the premise of the Golden Mic. And I've been using that for, like I said, probably 3 years for myself, making multiple $1 million for myself doing this. And then 9 months ago now, that's when Dan Henry came along and helped me put it together.
I love that so much. It is truly something that I've personally experienced myself. So when I started my podcast, I guess it was 2020, I didn't really necessarily have a lot of intentions for the podcast other than I thought it'd be great to start a podcast. I knew a lot of other people that had podcasts that I talked to at speaking events. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. And the amount of incredible, successful, intelligent people that I've had the opportunity to have a one-on-one sit down and ask them all of my burning questions is amazing when you really go back and think about it. And I think it's incredible because, again, it is the best way to learn from incredible people if you don't have the money to invest in something like that. But obviously, whatever it is that you've done has taken that piece and has tied it with the sales piece at the same time. What you did with Brad obviously showed you that, okay, this is a different type of client that I need to be attracting. When did you start to understand what your methodology was
Yeah.
for able to use this platform in order to sell, which I'm sure was not necessarily something that you wanted to broadcast? Like, I'm bringing you on here because I'm hoping that you'll be my client. But when did that piece click for you?
Yeah, I think that's a great question because I think right now, one of the biggest questions, or I don't know if pushback is the correct word, but like certainly one of the biggest questions is, okay, Josh, so doesn't everybody know you're just going to come on the podcast and then pitch them?
Yeah.
And it's no, because I don't know if I'm going to pitch the people that I bring on. I have no clue. And I think the thing that what I like to say about the Golden Mic Method is I say, okay, look, this platform, this microphone should just be an amplification of you. It should be an amplification of your brand and the ideas that you stand for, right? And the goal is to not make it about you, right? The podcast that I started, Think Different Theory, right before you got sued by Apple, right? And had to rebrand under that. The intention was not to try to go and make it about me and my marketing skills, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the big problems that if we look at how most entrepreneurs think about podcasting, I think that entrepreneurs, how we think about podcasting is fundamentally broken because like we try to use mainstream models of podcasting for us. And it's like, when has mainstream application ever been applicable to entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
It's not applicable in work. It's not applicable in finances. It's not applicable in our health. Like it's just radically different. But we go, Russell Brunson said, or Gary Vaynerchuk said, or whoever said, I should start a podcast, right? Or when we were convinced, I'm going to go start a podcast. And we go, who's got a big podcast? And we go, oh, Joe Rogan has a big podcast. Let me go do what Joe Rogan did.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go interview people like Joe Rogan did. It's okay. Let me ask you, who's Joe Rogan's customer?
I don't really know, to be honest.
Joe Rogan's customer?
He sells anything.
Okay, but he makes hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's
Joe
true.
Rogan's customer is the advertiser.
Yeah.
Which means that we as listeners, if you listen to Joe Rogan, we are his product.
Yes.
He sells us to advertisers, which means that the way that he's selling that, the platform he's creating by interviewing these experts, his goal is to get as many listeners as possible. And so it's we as entrepreneurs, we go, oh, I want to be like Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been in the boat, right? But we go and we say, I'm going to go and I'm a marketer. So what am I going to do? I'm going to start a podcast about marketing. There's nothing wrong with that. I want to break down the thought process here, which is, okay, great. But if you don't sell to advertisers, I don't know, do you have sponsors for your show?
No.
Most entrepreneurs don't, right? That's not why we've started it. We go, okay, great. But I want to be like Joe Rogan. So I'm going to come on and I'm going to interview other marketers because it's a marketing podcast. And so now you look down at your audience and you go, hey, I'm not selling to advertisers because I don't have them. And now you're telling your audience in a way like, hey, this guy's the expert on marketing, or this girl's the expert on marketing, or go listen to them. And I had a podcast with 1.5 million downloads, all organically. We did it in about 2.5 years. And I made more money from my 3,000 or 4,000 person email list promoting affiliate offers than I did promoting like little offers and stuff on my podcast. And so this is the way that entrepreneurs try to build a podcast. And then they go, why am I not making any money? And it's, oh, okay. No, that's because when entrepreneurs focus on the guest and when they focus on the listener, which by the way, I'm not saying we don't care about them. We do. But like when that's the focus, when we're optimizing about them, typically we make it about us. We make it about our business. We make it about the thing that we're trying to do. And what I did with Think Different Theory and what I did with the podcast there with the Golden Mic is I said, what if I made it about the guest? And what if I created a platform where they wanted to come talk about it? And we had Russell Brunson on the show. And we didn't just have him on the show. Russell Brunson came on for 3.5 hours to talk about Atlas Shrugged. And I flew out to Boise to do it in person and he streamed it to his entire audience. And he's the guy that reached out to us, right? Like he reached out to me and was like, hey, can I come on and talk about Atlas Shrugged? Why? Because we had a platform that he actually wanted to come talk about a topic where he didn't have that opportunity for a lot of other people or on a lot of other podcasts. And so the starting point of this is you cannot have some ulterior motive where it's, I'm going to bring on somebody and the entire purpose is just to go pitch them something. That can't be it. The entire purpose has to start with, how do I have great conversations with people? How do I build a platform that that benefits their life, right? That they want to come talk to me about. And then at that point, right? Like now we've given that person a motive. We've given that person a reason to come talk to us. Now I'm going to spend an hour with them, or I'm going to spend 2 hours with them. And I'm going to focus on figuring out, hey, how does this person think? Is there a way that I can provide value to their life? Is there a problem that I know how to solve? And then if there is, then we can pick up the conversation on the back end, right? If there is, then the natural progression of powerful relationship says, let me make your life better. You'll make my life better. We'll do business. And so we can talk about this specific sales process. We use a Google Doc for it. But if your intention is, and I believe this fully, right? If your intention is the only reason that I'm inviting this person on my show is because I want to sell them something, like this will not work, right? That's not how powerful people, that's not how wealthy people, and that's not how they think, right? Yeah. That's not how they're buying from people. It's, okay, wait a second. I want to have a powerful relationship with this person. How do I create a platform where they want to come talk to me? Not just willing, but want to come talk to me. And then how do I find ways to make their life better? And if you do that, I have found that business comes very natural on the back end.
I think that makes so much sense. Definitely looking at how your podcast is going to amplify the guest, I think is an amazing way to approach it, because ultimately everyone is interested in their own best interest. They're not there to highlight you. And ultimately, if you are having those really unique, interesting, powerful conversations, people are going to want to listen. And I think it does go back to what you were saying with Joe Rogan. Like, part of the reason why people love listening to his show is because he has these really unique guests that are talking about these really unique things that you don't often hear people talking about, and especially not in depth. And that has been one of the few places that people feel like they can hear that really consistently.
Yeah.
As you started to understand this, did that change who you were reaching out to invite on the show? Or did you have a system that you were utilizing to decide who are going to be the best guests for me? Again, not necessarily intending to pitch every single person that came on, but what did that look like in terms of you using this method internally, but also wanting to make sure that the episodes, that the content, that the conversations were really powerful for the person who was being interviewed and for the listeners?
Yeah. So I approach business and entrepreneurship and life, I think, a little bit different than perhaps most do. At least I think I have a different philosophy on it. And there are definitely people that do as well. But when I was at my lowest point in life, where my brother had passed away, I sold my business and went around the world with my wife. She gets very sick with an intestinal eating parasite overseas and almost dies. And I go from on top of the world to living in she was my girlfriend at the time, my girlfriend's mom's house for a week over Christmas. When I got to that lowest point in life, I had the incredible opportunity and blessing, and I was at a very low point, but it was a blessing to work with a coach by the name of Katie Richardson. And this woman, we're talking about a powerful woman. Oh my God, completely changed my life, right? Completely changed my perspective and outlook on everything. And a core fundamental belief that I hold is I believe in alignment, and I believe birds of a feather flock together. And I believe that when you become a person, a type of person, that you are going to attract those type of people, right? And call it law of attraction, call it manifestation, whatever. Like, that's all sounds woo, but I absolutely believe in that. And that is the approach that I take in business. And I don't pretend that the Golden Mike method is something that it's not. I have proven that you can get to about $3 million with the Golden Mike method. I'm not going to pretend you can go to 10 million. I'm not going to pretend you can go to 100 million. I've never done it. Probably can. But what I built this for was I built this because I wanted to be free, right? Like, as an entrepreneur, I think most entrepreneurs, right? Like, we don't want to build a $100 million company. We want to do work that we find fulfilling by helping other people so that we can eliminate financial worry on a daily basis, right? And so for me, I go, great. I don't need I don't need a lot of people. I need the right people.
Yeah.
And so when I go and reach out to people, and I know this sounds crazy, but I don't have some secret methodology of, oh my gosh, like, here's how I find the right person every single time. Yeah. I invite on and talk to people that I find interesting, that I would want to be like, that I want to learn from, that I think have worldviews that I agree with, or that I want to learn more about. Maybe I disagree with them, but I respect things that they've done. And I have found that when I go and I map out and script out, okay, I'm going to try to get this person on because I think they're going to be the ideal person here, or that person here. It's like, I just have not had that much success. But when I go and I say, hey, this is the market that I'm in. And so all I do is I look at the market and I pick my top dog. I go, who's the top dog, right? Me, that was Russell Brunson, right? Now it's Tom Bilyeu, right? I'm like, all right, cool. That's my top dog. This is the world that I'm playing in. I look at that market and I go, who in that market, who in this world is a player? And who of them do I respect? Who of them do I want to learn more about so that I can move? I need some direction. I need some goalpost. I need a lighthouse. For me, that's that top dog. That's that Russell or that Tom Bilyeu. And then I go, cool. Who in that world do I want to go and be a part or chat with, right? How do I make everybody in the world see me? And how do I fill up this world? But as far as picking specific names, I just go, I think that if I just get into networks, if I just find really cool people, money runs in networks, right? Any entrepreneur that's sold to people with money, right? It's like there's broke networks and there's rich networks. And I'll ask you, have you ever had something really good happen to you, or someone did you a really good favor, or you were really happy with somebody and you never wanted to tell anybody about it and only wanted to keep it to yourself? No, you want to go tell all your friends, right? If you have a solution, you go talk. And so I will go and with Brad, I interviewed Brad because I thought Brad was interesting, not because I thought Brad was going to become a client, right? And when we were done, he thought it was interesting and we became friends and he hired me. And then he went and told all of his friends. And then he referred people to the podcast. And then they were like, oh my gosh, you did great work for Brad. And I was like, yeah, you want me to do it for you too? And like when you become the person and when you know who you are and when you have a platform that amplifies that, I really do believe that once you start getting into these networks, like the right people come. There's alignment in the way that in the people that you talk to and the referrals. And that has been the way that I have done business to the tunes of millions of dollars. And the way I would label it is I go, this is like intentional networking. Like it's intentional referral based business, but like without any ulterior agenda. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that when you don't have that ulterior motive, everything is going to work better. People can feel that.
Yeah.
And part of your golden mic method, based on what I know about it, is that the goal of this is to focus on wealthy individuals, people who have money to spend. As I'm sure most everybody listening knows, we're in a different economic climate now than we were 4 years ago. Things are different. Things cost more. I was interviewing a potential closer earlier today, and he said, I love what I'm doing, but ultimately, I've got to have the ability to make more money because everything I'm already buying is twice as expensive. So what I'm doing now isn't going to cut it. And I think most people feel that way, whether you're making a lot of money or not, that the prices of things are quite high. And ultimately, if you're trying to sell to people who are having to decide between keeping the lights on and paying for your service, they're going to choose keeping the lights on.
Yeah.
This is something that I talk to like my agency students about as well. It's if you don't have a niche and you're at the point where you're having to decide who you're going to focus on, you need to focus on businesses that serve wealthy individuals, because those businesses are going to be way less impacted by any economic changes than somebody who their core audience or market that they serve is just struggling to get by. And ultimately, nobody wants that for anyone, but it's just the truth of the matter. So how did you arrive at this? I guess, Brad, the experience you had with them showed you a lot, but what is the thought process behind helping people identify that wealthy people are who they should be selling to?
Yeah. This is probably one of my favorite questions and topics of conversation with this, because I host a Bible study at my house, and one of the guys every Wednesday night, and one of the guys yesterday, he goes, dude, we moved to Colorado, whatever it was, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whatever it was. And he goes, we order, our groceries online, and we went back to the first order. And it was $120. And he was like, we just hit reorder just to see how much it would be. And he goes, $330. It went up by and it's expensive. And so not only is the Golden Mike method specifically optimized to sell high ticket offers, because this is a quality game, not a quantity game, right? Like I said, I'm very open. If you want to sell quantity, don't use this method, right? That's not what it's for. This is for wealthy clientele. This is for like high ticket buyers and quality relationships that you're going to do business with people long term. Brad and I have done business after Brad's paid me $350,000. One client has paid me $350,000 and I've made him multiple millions. The premise here though is this: when we hear the word wealthy clients, we automatically assume money. And that's not incorrect, right? But that's not the entire picture,
Yeah.
right? Because there's people that have money that have a scarcity mindset, yes or no?
Absolutely.
100%, right? And there's people that have money that are hard to identify. You wouldn't even know they had money, right? And so when we're trying to figure out, okay, problems and the things that we serve, the way that I like to think about it is, imagine you're a cook, right? Or you're a chef, and you get hired to go cook 2 different meals. And for one meal, you go and it's an average person's birthday party for their 13-year-old kid or something like that. And you go and it's a standard kitchen and all the standard recipes and everything. You may do a really good job and you're a good cook. You're going to deliver a great meal for them. But if the second client is a multi-millionaire who's got a big donor or client party at his house, and he's got a mega mansion with 2 or 3 different kitchens and maids and assistants and all the different things, and then you were brought to that house to cook a meal, and he's got every single different bell or whistle you could possibly imagine, who are you going to be able to cook a better meal for? It's obviously that guy, right? And not only that, it's going to be worth more to him because he's impressing clients. And not only that, like, he's probably got assistants and maids to come clean it up, or servants to come clean it up afterwards. And I'm going to do the same amount of work in both places, but I'm going to be able to do an exponentially better result over here, not because I didn't do a good result over here, but that was my experience with Brad. The service that I sold to Brad was a $5,000 service, is what I'd been selling it as. And I was selling it to beginners, and the average person that paid me $5,000, I made them about 15 grand. Not bad, but it was like a lot of work on our side.
Yeah.
I sold the exact same offer to Brad for 30 grand. And everyone's, oh my gosh, like, that's a ripoff. And I'm like, no, because I needed to make sure that I could actually deliver. I was freaking out inside. We made him $400,000. It was actually more than that, but it's like $400,000 in the first 90 days from that exact same thing. I did the same amount of work. And so that light bulb moment for me went, okay, wait a second. There are just different worlds. Right. And I wasn't told this growing up. I don't know if you were told this growing up. I don't think most entrepreneurs know this. It's, you can choose to work in a world of broke, or you can choose to work in a world of wealthy. And it is, when I say choose, it is literally just a choice. It is literally, am I going to decide to learn and master what it's like to speak to these people? Or am I going to decide to learn and master what it's like to speak to these people? And so my thought process around selling to people with money is, who has resources, right? Who's going to make my job easier to where I can actually deliver a good result, to where I can have margin, to where I can charge what I need to charge. I can take care of my family. I can have profit from it. And I know the reason I like high ticket, I think it's morally better sell high ticket services at the beginning than it is to sell low ticket coaching or low ticket stuff at the beginning. Because if something goes wrong, you have margin now, right? If I sell something for $25,000 to Brad or $30,000 to Brad, right? And something goes wrong, great. I can just go hire someone to come help me fix it. Or I can go figure out a way because I've got margin. But if I sell it for $5 grand or $2 grand, it's just not. And so that's how we approach, or why we sell to the wealthy people, because it's an easier sale. It's easier to get results. They're more thankful for it anyway. And it's easier to change your life in that capacity. And when our inevitable, stupid, ridiculous government continues to crash this economy, right? And people run out of money, well, the wealthy people are still going to have money.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And we recently relaunched kind of the whole agency division of the business about 2 months ago. And when I first started my business, I was strictly done for you agency. And then I've really been focusing primarily on coaching for the last 5 years. And this time around, it's a very different scenario.
So different.
And what we have absolutely talked about and found is 2 of the new offers that we have on the agency side are significantly higher priced than anything I ever sold when I first started doing agency. And the really interesting thing has been, it's been the easiest package to sell.
So simple, right?
And the type of business who is now attracted to this package is so very different than who would have been attracted to those offers initially, because spending 12 grand a month on a business who can help you with all the different elements of your advertising and your marketing, that's nothing for a business that is doing well, but is really focused on scaling. And ultimately, it's a huge savings in terms of if they're going to hire all these people individually. But when you're working with bigger ad budgets, you have the ability to make a bigger impact. If you actually have the resources, like you were saying, to be able to deliver an incredible result, as opposed to Again, I love working with small businesses. I've worked with small businesses for a long time. Part of the reason we help them learn how to do it is because it's usually not in their best interest to outsource it to an agency because they don't have enough budget to pay them and to spend the money on their ads. And like you mentioned, we can get them awesome results, but like in comparison to what a larger business is going to be able to do, it's night and day.
It's night and day.
It really is.
I had a client just 3 or 4 days ago. He's, yeah, dude, I'm talking to a client right now. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's the package? He's like, 25,000 up front and 7,000 a month. And I'm like, there we go. And he's closed this guy over the DM. Right? I'm like, yeah, well, that's insanity for some people. But it's like when you have something that works and you solve a problem, like people buy. And we talked about the method, but like in the last 8 months since starting rolling this out to people, like we've had 41 clients or students go through this and over $3 million in sales, no ads, right? Over 1.7 million cash collected, no ads, no funnels, we're not doing webinars, and they're crushing it. And the reason is because they're selling to people that have money, that have a legitimate problem that they know how to solve, and solve one problem for these people and you're in for life. And so, yeah, 100%.
I love it. Very interesting. Josh, if people want to learn more about you or the Golden Mike Method, where can they go to do that?
Yep. So we've tried to make it super simple. joshforti.com. It has all the links for everything from the workshops that we do to the free PDF podcast profits. If you want to download that for free, connect. All my socials are on there and everything. So that's like the hub is joshforti.com. And if there's any way that we can serve, like I'm just a big believer in serve first, right? So if there's anything we can do to help, please reach out. My team is amazing. I just hired like a full-time integrator. My assistant's amazing. Like if there's anything we can do, we're friendly and we want to help you, right? We want people to win. We want entrepreneurs.
That's amazing. I love it. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been great. I'm sure you've really set some light bulbs off for a lot of people that are going to be watching or listening. So until next time, I will see you guys. And thanks again for joining me.
Thank you so much, Ali. I appreciate it.